perfect segue. We're going to keep talking about the view sources footnotes. So one thing that Connor has been working on is kind of what we just talked about, where we want to send the entire chat message to the backend to get all of the story tiles so that the experience will be quicker. The user doesn't have to wait those 3 seconds to actually get the correct story tiles back and then view them. They should just be already there when I click whatever text we're going to put down here. Right now it's view sources, but it might be something different in the future. We basically want the user to click that and then have all the story tiles for this message already there. The problem is with Markdown, this can get a little bit difficult. So you notice I'm viewing a table right now. I'll zoom out a little bit. If I switch to raw text, we can see, because this is a response that's formatted in Markdown, there are these like dashes and these bars right here. So splitting this chunk of text up into sentences is not intuitive for the backend. It can't just do that right away. The way we have it right now for a normal message would be that you click this footnote and then only this text right here gets sent to the backend. And then that's pretty easy because we can just match it with what's in the database, get those story tiles and then bring them back. But we don't have all these dashes and bars in the text in the backend. So the way around this is we can send this entire block of text to the backend without the footnotes, obviously. So it would look like this technically. We're going to send this whole thing to the backend, and then we're going to run it through kind of this like filtering algorithm that removes each of the dashes and the bars and then splits it into sentences, which we can then send off individually to the backend, like to the database, to figure out which story tiles are correct for those sentences. So just to reiterate that one more time, we're removing all these special characters. We're splitting them into individual sentences, making requests to the database to get the story tiles for those sentences, putting them all kind of in one group, and then sending them back to the front end. Okay, and I'd actually like Connor to explain how he used Storytel to build this feature.
Yeah, so thanks, Ryan, for explaining that. So the way I use Storytel for Boss Chat, at least, was that when we were trying to split this giant body of text up into smaller sentences, what we're basically doing, like Ryan explained, is splitting it up based on some special characters. So the special characters we're using to split on are dash and a space, the vertical line and a space, or period and space. And those are 3 very special characters that are meant to split up sentences, tables, and bulleted lists are the 3 things that those are targeted at. Now, in Python, splitting on all of those individually is kind of just like ugly in the actual logic itself. So we can use something called regex to split on that for us. But these regex expressions, if anyone's ever used them before, are pretty like, I don't know, the syntax is a little bit complicated sometimes. So I actually went into Boss Chat and I said, hey, I want to have a regex expression that splits on these 3 specific characters. Can you write one for me? And it not only wrote the regex expression, but actually wrote the Python code to do all the splitting for me as well. And literally copied and pasted it verbatim right into our code base, and it worked like a charm.
Sorry, I'm just showing what a regex might look like. It's stuff like this. It's like not human readable unless you know what's going on.
Yeah, so it went right into Boss Chat and it worked great. So if you see that in our constants file, anyone working on the back end, that's where it comes from. It comes right from Boss Chat.
All right, I'll move on to the next one now. So this was a bug that Connor fixed, and this one, I've seen it a few times with tables, but maybe some of you have seen it as well. Sometimes a response will almost respond back twice with whatever prompt that you asked. So in this case, I'm asking list 5 features of this Jeep in a table format and make the blah, 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 just, format the table. And it gave me 5 features right here, and I would expect the table to cut off right after this, but it actually did it a second time right here. So now there's another column, another 2 columns with another 5 features right here. So this is just kind of a weird user experience thing. I asked for 5, it's giving back what looks like 10 with this weird row here. So obviously it's kind of a bug, and because of the bad user experience, that's why we want to fix this. The fix for this was, I'm actually going to hop over into the code here. So we have this function that we called send chat robustly. And when we first send it out to maybe like chat GPT-4, or I should just say GPT-4 because we're going model by model, we try that model first. And if there's an error, which you'll see here, this LangChain request error, then we'll try a different model again. So this loop right here goes through the different models that we have available to try out this prompt in case one of them fails. The weird thing that's happening with this case is that this response is failing like on the last character or like right after it finishes. So we get this response, which is correct. And then for some reason it fails right at the end. So then we try the next model, basically asking that same question again to a different model and getting a response. And it's all packed in the same response. So we get this first one, the correct one. It thinks that it failed. So it tries it again. And then we get the second part of the response. And so, I feel like I've even seen it maybe do it 3 times or something like that. But the fix for this, I believe, Connor, correct me if I'm wrong, is when we're basically not going to try another model if we already get some chunk of text coming back from the first one. So it's so rare that it fails in the middle of a response. Like it usually doesn't fail like right here. It's for some reason it's always right at the end. To combat that, we're just saying if we get any response at all, just use that text as the response. And 99% of the time, it actually should work correctly. Is that right, Connor?
Yeah, great explanation. It's really just most of those failures are either on the OpenAI side, like I've even seen some of those this morning, which we can't really control. So if they throw an error for some reason, then we have to handle it. So yeah, from now on, if there is any text that's already been streamed, the message will kind of just end there. So for OpenAI errors, you might get a cutoff, but there's also a logging step that happens here. And my hypothesis that I haven't tested yet is that the logging is actually one of the other things that's causing these errors at the very end of the statement. If you see, it might even be, it's not on this page here, but so if the message types out, we try to log it and we get a logging error because maybe the text field we're trying to log is too big for the table. Then that would throw an error and then it would try to fall back to the second model and type out another answer. Right. So in that case, using the response that's already been returned is perfect. That was the right one anyway. We just errored out in the logging step. So a couple follow-ups here, right, are as we have this fix in, we should start monitoring which errors are causing this the most and then try to handle those exceptions specifically so we don't miss any logs, so we don't provide, poor responses. So there's kind of a monitoring follow-up to do with this as well to make sure we're handling all the cases as best we can.